All right, this first exercise will be how to place this cube on the path, and then how to get the cube to move along the path. All right, I'm just going to go through really quickly, and then we'll go through it together step by step, and I'll talk about some of the other parts of Blender that you're going to have to be looking at to do the animation. But first thing I want to talk about is a certain menu. Okay, what would you say this icon represents, if you had to guess?
Linking.
Okay, yeah, it looks like a chain link, something linking, but it really stands for constraints, object constraints. And the reason why that's important is because if something were just to move around totally freely, you can't really control it. So a lot of times in animation, we use something called constraints to lock it to a certain axis, but in this case, we're going to lock it to a certain path, and then we can adjust the speed as it moves along the path. So I'm showing this icon really large because we're going to need to access that in Blender, and it's over on the side here in the properties. You see where that chain link is? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first select the cube and go immediately to the chain link, and there's nothing here, but that's because all of these constraints are in this drop-down menu. What I'm going to choose is a follow path constraint. The target will be the motion path that I created, and immediately the cube snaps to the path. What we're going to do next is go to another menu. Well, first we're going to select the path, and there's another menu that looks kind of like a curve. All right, that's called curve data. So we're going to go to the curve data menu, and there's a lot of stuff here that we don't need to worry about, but there's a sub-menu called path animation. Let me write a couple things on the board before we continue. Okay, I'm writing down two colors. Blender and all other programs usually have some kind of color coding system. Okay, yellow just means that there's a keyframe. Green means there's no keyframe, but that attribute is animated. So I'll repeat this again, but all you really need to know is that once you set a keyframe, in order to confirm, visually confirm that you did it, you just look to see if it's yellow or not. And if you see an attribute is green, really that's kind of a reminder, hey, at the frame you're on, there's currently no keyframe, but you might have keyframed it earlier. So it's kind of like just a warning, like, hey, you may want to keyframe this, or just letting you know there's animation on this attribute. Okay, I'm also going to write another note here. This is very important. You're going to use the letter I a lot today. I stands for insert keyframe. Most people want to hit the space bar. Just in like iTunes or like some kind of audio player or video player, the tendency is to want to use a space bar to play or stop, but in Blender, it's going to be Alt-A. All right, if Jack were here, I would say on a Mac it would be Option A, but it's going to be Alt-A. All right, so I'll repeat this again. So check it out. I selected the curve. I went to the curve data menu. I go to the path animation submenu. I hover over an attribute called evaluation time and hit the letter I. What color will this change to?
Yellow.
Correct. That means it's keyframed. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go all the way to the last frame. I'm just using the right arrow key. In the future, you could just hit shift right arrow and just jump back and forth, all right? So I'm on the last frame, which is frame 30. You can see I'm on frame 30 here. I'm going to change the evaluation time, which is like a percentage. Like if I type in 50%, the cube goes halfway through the whole path. But if I type 100%, it'll be at the very end. Once it's at the very end, Steven, what do I do next?
Press I.
Yeah, but I don't want to just hit I anywhere. I want to hover over the attribute and hit I.